A content creator here in China just filmed this graveyard parking lot of hi-fi cars. These hi-fi cars have been built but not taking delivery, not being sold so long that they were forced to put on a license plate for these cars. But of course, there's nowhere to put them but this graveyard of parking lot. And guys, competitors are dying. Hi-fi is already in its coffin. All right. Weltmeister is already gone. And many more will actually follow. And in the end, all right, when all this cleansing finishes, all right, we're in the process of cleansing, all right, there will be less competition for NIO, all right, and NIO will be the one on top. And NIO is actually already the one on top. And let me give you an example of some of the other guys that are also about to die out. So for example, when you think of NIO's biggest competitor in terms of battery swapping, you used to think of Rising Auto, Feifan, but these guys, they've sold only a few hundred cars per month. There's absolutely no reason to buy their cars. Their battery swap station is closed most of the time, and just no reason to buy their cars. And their sister company, IM Motors, did lots of price cuts and made their products much cheaper, so there's no reason to buy a Rising Auto car when you can buy a IM Motor car. All right, so that company, NIO's biggest competitor when it comes to battery swap, is going out of business. They are going to die and disband soon. In fact, when you look at NIO's other competitors, there's actually CATL, who's also doing their EVOGO battery swap, which actually got that tech from NIO. It was sort of like NIO gave that tech to them so that they can shake hands and have a long-lasting, happy partnership together. So, you know, EVOGO is essentially also NIO's battery swap, to be honest. And then on top of that, you have Alton, which is also sort of invested by NIO, which does battery swapping for taxis. Interesting, right? So in that sense, NIO essentially has a monopoly on battery swapping, period. End of that debate. Now, going back to the topic, what about the competitors that are dying out? Well, NIO used to have this joint venture called GAC NIO, right? GAC NIO was 25% owned by NIO, 25% owned by NIO Capital, and then that company, right? They had SUVs and stuff like that, all very similar to NIO vehicles with like sort of like Nomi, that kind of stuff. But there was no reason to buy that car. I mean, they can't do battery swap either. NIO divested themselves from that brand, but you know, those guys, they're not doing too well. They're only selling like a couple hundred a month, abysmal sales, and they've been doing like everybody does sales, like every single employee, like from top to bottom. Like when that happens, you know it's game over, right? It's game over. So those guys are also not going to make it, and there are actually quite a lot of other companies, but more importantly, what you're seeing is some of the pure EV competitors, they cannot compete with NIO in the sense that selling pure EVs, they can only sell a couple vehicles, which is just not enough to make sense. So it's gotten so extreme that some of them had to ditch pure EVs and actually go with EREVs to essentially sell more cars, right? Because EREVs, hybrids, they still got gas tags. That's something that the customers are more willing to accept. So, you know, they're being squeezed out the market, and in a last-ditch effort, they're taking on the magic substance, gasoline, to, you know, claw back some sales. It's gotten that bad, okay? So what you're seeing, for example, Avatar, right? Avatar 1.1, just terrible sales. It's a great car, terrible sales. And they're forced to do a hybrid, okay? Denza, when they had their pure electric vehicles, didn't sell well at all. The Denza N7, nah. They had to go and launch hybrids, EREVs. Absolutely crazy, DMI. So you're seeing these EV makers are being forced to take on gasoline, which is also, you know, being squeezed out of the market essentially. Okay, and what you're seeing right now in the market in general is that Tesla has a complete dominance on the mass market area. All right, so Tesla sells the most in terms of the 200,000 to 300,000 range mass market. Number one sales in general, Model Y here in China, which is just absolutely nuts. Okay, but then above 300,000, NIO actually sells the best when it comes to pure electric car. What does this all mean for investors? Why am I telling you this? Well, we've all been really worried, and me as well, about all the incentives that they're giving out, the big losses that they're incurring. This quarter, Q2, they're probably going to have record revenues. Well, definitely they're going to have record revenues, but might also have record losses in the sense that they're giving away so many incentives and they're doing so many things at the same time. Factory number 3, and then you also have expansion for Envo, expansion in Europe, and all these incentives. Back at the start of Q2, they gave out a new phone for every sale that happened. So, you know, all these really hurt into margins, cause bigger losses, but you got to understand that it's all going to be worth it, because as their numbers go up, all right, it gives buyers, consumers, more confidence in that brand. All right, they're selling well. Okay, I can trust that they're not going to go away. Whereas the guys that only sell a couple hundred per month, do you even dare buy those vehicles? All right, so it's really more sales help validate customers and gets even more sales. It gives you confidence. Okay, and this is just also pushing the buyers away from the competitors and into NIO. So what you're going to see is that even though NIO is giving out so many incentives and big losses, what's going to happen is everybody else is going to be squeezed out of the market. All right, NIO is going to be one of the few left, and at the end of the day, all right, when this price war, all right, price war is still going on, even though some people are saying it's ending. All right, this elimination phase, this cleansing phase, I think it's going to take another 1.5 years to 2 years until some of the weaker players are fully wiped out. And by then, it's pretty much like no-brainer. You got NIO, you got Tesla. Which one do you choose? The other guys, they're basically non-existent. You wouldn't trust them, and they don't have the service network or anything like that to match anything that NIO or Tesla has. So it's going to come to that. That's the end game. That's what's going to happen in the end. But throughout the cleansing phase, it's going to be very painful. All right, it's going to be very painful. They got to give out so many incentives to sustain these high sales, trying to wipe out the competitors. It takes a lot of time. It takes a lot of effort. It takes a lot of money, and it takes a lot of persistence. You got to be very patient with the fact that it takes some time for these guys to die out. They're not going to die out immediately. Okay, but then as their sales decline, their sales are going to decline more in the future. All right, and as they don't have the funds to do further R&D to make their products better, their future products, then it's absolutely game over. They're selling old tech in a new age. That just doesn't make sense for the consumer. And what we're seeing is right now the pace of tech development in cars is so fast. Right, it's just way, way, way too fast. You see NIO launch the LiDAR on the ET7 on top. Just a couple years later, everybody has LiDAR on top. It's just crazy, all right? But eventually, all right, most of these guys are going to get wiped out. And policy is eventually going to favor pure electric vehicles. We're seeing here in Beijing, actually, they're giving out 20,000 more license plates for pure electric vehicles. Soon, all right, soon, I hope that they can remove EREVs from green license plates. All right, it just doesn't make sense for EREVs, which still burn gasoline and are actually very harmful to the environment, to also have a green license plate. Anything that has a drop of gasoline inside should not have a green license plate here in China. But, you know, I didn't make the rules. The Chinese government made the rules, and it just doesn't make sense. But they're waking up to it. They're saying, like, what the hell? We're giving green license plates to all these cars that are polluting the streets. No. So they're going to change that eventually. All right, and we're already seeing some restrictions to EREVs and PHEVs, that kind of stuff. So just be patient in the sense that NIO will definitely survive. NIO will be the one on top, and all these other guys, these other competitors, they're dying out. They're being wiped out. Okay, and once that happens, within 1.5 to 2 years, then NIO will basically have complete dominance in the market, or in the luxury EV, and hopefully they will have a decent market share in the mass market with Envo, and then in the cheaper budget tier with Firefly. But it's going to take time for the competitors to get wiped out, and they are being wiped out. All right, as always, stay safe, stay healthy, peace out.